This is a story about money, power and a battle for influence at the heart of the Conservative establishment. An acrimonious dispute drawing in party grandees, MPs and lawyers, ending up here on the steps of the High Court. All of it fuelled by one man's millions. The saga began when former Conservative MP Charlotte Leslie put together a confidential memo which she circulated to eminent party figures about this man, Mohamed Amersi, who along with his wife has given the Conservatives £750,000 since 2017.
The memo is simply something that isn't uncommon for someone like me to do. It's a due diligence note. There were some red flags, but I felt that those red flags did need to be raised. It was the right, responsible thing to do.
She didn't realise it, but she had picked a fight that would consume nearly 3 years of her life. Ms Leslie's memo went to 13 people, expressing concerns about Mr Amersi's attempts to take over the organisation she runs. The memo claimed that Mr Amersi had not honoured promises. It also said he claimed to travel to and hold influence in Iran. It added he had links to Russia whilst stating that the details were unclear. And it pointed out his involvement in an offshore foundation registered in the Bahamas. But the memo found its way to Mohamed Amersi himself. Soon, Charlotte Leslie received a letter.
That was when I realised that things had really kicked off in a way that I hadn't anticipated.
Mr Amersi had instructed one of London's most fearsome libel firms, Carter Ruck. He'd sued both Charlotte Leslie and her organisation, the Conservative Middle East Council. The turn of events dismayed the Conservative Party, who advised Ms Leslie to enter mediation with Mr Amersi. She got a call from this man, Tory advisor Carl Hunter.
Everyone was saying to me, this is going to cost you a lot of money, it's going to drag the organisation through the muck. Trust us, do whatever you can to end it. Now, I was very much of the opinion I had done absolutely nothing wrong. So I engaged in this mediation, which started out reasonable, but then became quite threatening. There were 4 calls in total, and in the 4th call, I'd thought about this and I asked whether he had meant to challenge my personal security. And I didn't get the reassurance that he didn't. And that was chilling.
Mr Amersi has denied that he was aware of Mr Hunter making these comments or that Mr Hunter was acting on his behalf. Carl Hunter said,
"In January 2021, I was asked to mediate a dispute between 2 members of the Conservative Party. They both agreed to the mediation, which I undertook in a personal, unpaid and purely voluntary capacity. I tried to help both parties. I'm sorry if my genuine attempts to find a compromise were misinterpreted. I have not been involved with the legal case, nor any related matters, since early 2021.
I became increasingly concerned about the nature of the legal case that was being conducted against me, the acceleration of it, the escalation of it very quickly, the very, very aggressive tone.
Ms Leslie then discovered a firm of private investigators had been looking into her. There's no suggestion they were doing anything wrong or illegal, but she decided to submit a subject access request to find out what they'd gathered.
This very rarely happens that you get wind of a private detective agency looking at you. The whole point of it is it's supposed to be secret. So this was an extraordinary event, and it enabled me to look under the bonnet of what goes on with private intelligence agencies.
Eventually, she was able to obtain a list of files describing her as a compromised figure and saying she was playing the flirty Oxford graduate. An attachment to an internal email referred to 6 former lovers who were victims of sting operations she'd carried out on them. And then pages and pages of research referring to her as the lady or lady, containing details about her past as an MP, donations and family.
There was a redacted source saying they had spoken to 6 of my former lovers who said they were victims of what they described as a sting operation against them by me, and what I wanted was money and political influence. Now that's an accusation of criminal activity. That cannot have come from the public domain because it's obscenely and absurdly untrue.
K2 Integrity told us,
K2's work was limited to public information only, and no discussions were conducted with external sources, including the associates of Ms Leslie. The comments relating to Ms Leslie were made during the course of initial briefings to K2 employees and not source inquiries.
And the legal action was taking its toll.
You're getting these endless letters from Carter Ruck accusing you of being all sorts of things. And at the beginning, it's very, very upsetting. And you can't say to the world, look what's happening to me, this is wrong, because of course they'll use that as material for another defamation claim. So that's when it really feels like murder in the dark. When you get to court, particularly as we were so lucky to have some financial protection through insurance, at least the lights have been turned on and there's a referee on the pitch.
The British courts have become a magnet for rich individuals wanting to target and silence those who criticise them. So-called strategic lawsuits against public participation, or SLAPPs for short, are an attempt to harass, intimidate and financially cripple journalists, writers and even politicians. The government is looking at legislating to tackle the problem.
Mr. David Davis.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
One of Ms Leslie's former colleagues on the Conservative benches, David Davis, told the Commons last year he thought the case Mr Amersi brought against her was a SLAPP.
This was clearly an attempt to bully, intimidate and financially ruin Miss Leslie in order to suppress the truth. They are the classic characteristics of a SLAPP case.
And he was critical of Mr Amersi's lawyers.
Given that Mr Amersi was represented by Carter Ruck, the go-to law firm for every bad actor seeking to undermine and misuse British justice.
After nearly 3 years of legal battle, Amersi lost his case and was denied leave to appeal. So how important was this verdict? How important was it to win?
Well, it's a very important symbolic verdict, I think. And if it goes on longer and longer and longer, this sort of quadruples the effect. Increases the costs, increases the stress, increases the fear, increases the symbolism to other people. The courts are beginning to recognise this, but the courts alone can't fix it.
Here at the High Court, what started out as a private email chain ended up in a very public, very costly dispute. The judge found against Mr Amersi because he'd failed to prove serious harm to his reputation. And while he didn't refer to the litigation as a SLAPP, he was scathing about Mr Amersi.
The judge said his approach was exorbitant and noted that, and I quote, subjecting a person to successive civil claims can be a hallmark of abusive conduct. David Davis, the MP, said that he'd used his wealth and influence to try to bully you into silence. Is that how it felt to you?
It certainly felt like that. And the fact remains that I was not able to speak about what was happening to me without risk. And the fact remains that I will always be conscious of how anything, however innocuous, can be used by someone with money to make your life difficult for years.
Well, Amersi himself said that the verdict provided effective immunity to those who publish what he called serious falsehoods to small but influential groups of people, as it has done in this case. This cannot be right or fair. What's your response to that?
I am still yet to know what those falsehoods are.
You're considering a formal complaint to the Solicitors Regulation Authority about the conduct of Amersi's lawyers, Carter Ruck. Tell us why. I mean, surely they were entitled to defend their client.
I have been smeared, all sorts of defamatory things have been said about me. Now, can I bring a defamation case? Of course not. I'm not a multimillionaire. So that line of holding people accountable for what they say is only available to the super rich. That doesn't seem quite right.
Carter Ruck told us we hold ourselves to the highest possible standards in all aspects of our conduct and dealings with our clients, opponents and the court. They added they are only too well aware of the need to uphold the principles of responsible free expression, while safeguarding the right to reputation and privacy. We make no apology for seeking to protect our clients' rights robustly, but fully within the rules. After years of pressure over SLAPPs from MPs, publishers and journalists, the law is finally being changed to stop the wealthy abusing the system. But campaigners say the government's definition of a SLAPP is currently too narrow, leaving some defendants in legal purgatory.
Well, I spoke to Mohamed Amersi and put it to him that some say his case against Charlotte Leslie was by definition a SLAPP.
I would not at all categorize my action against her as a SLAPP. And it's good to know also that Mr. Justice Nicklin did not also decide or rule that this was a SLAPP.
But what the judge did say is that your approach was exorbitant. He said subjecting a person to successive civil claims, as you did, can be a hallmark of abusive conduct. So maybe not, he didn't use the word SLAPP, MP David Davis did, but the judge was pretty critical of your conduct, wasn't he?
So I agree with his comment that it's exorbitant, and by that I understand to be that libel cases are expensive and take a very long time to conclude. So he is absolutely right.
No, he said your approach was exorbitant.
No, but I'm saying that description was the right one. Now, my approach is a function of how long it takes for the court to schedule hearings.
But you strung it out by using first the Data Protection Act and then libel law.
That is today the easiest way for disputes to be resolved. And had Miss Leslie at that time done two things, which is what I was asking for was not damages. I didn't want costs. All I wanted was her to say who she sent those memos, and I call them dodgy dossiers, and I'll come to that in a minute. Who did she send them to? And how many of those were in circulation.
Let's talk about the claims that she made in the email, because she alleged that you had links to Russia. She said that your foundation, the Amersi Foundation, was registered offshore in the Bahamas. What's false about that?
So those are only the two that you highlight. These were not what you describe, or she describes as a due diligence memo. A due diligence report is properly fact-checked. It is properly balanced, so you say the good things about someone and the bad things. These were dodgy dossiers. When she
you keep using the term dodgy dossier, but actually she says she was entitled to raise red flags, she said to us, in a private email that was sent to only 13 people, and all the information she used was in the public domain.
These were dodgy dossiers because they were designed to hurt me. She made a number of wild, unsupported, unsubstantiated, hugely damaging allegations. If she was genuine about what she did, she should have sent that memo to the party and said, I understand you are affiliating Mr. Amersi's organization. Please invite him to have a discussion about these issues. She didn't do that. She damaged me. She hurt me. She insulted me by sending this out to a bunch of parliamentarians, diplomats, politicians, and her media friends.
Mr. Justice Nicklin said that the suggestion that your reputation had been seriously harmed was fanciful and devoid of reality and was not based on any properly premised inference. It is speculative and optimistic guesswork.
He thought that if I went to trial, I was more likely to lose than win. So he did not allow me to go to trial. He was in absolutely no position to make those conclusions without a proper cross-examination of witnesses and without getting Miss Leslie to file her defense. This is somebody that's saying, I have decided I don't look how you look, I don't like how you look, I don't like how you dress, and that's why you're not eligible for employment in this company, full stop. That's how it sounded to me.
You're making some quite astonishing claims about the British judicial system there.
I'm not making any claims. I'm just saying to you that I was denied my day in the sunshine. I was denied, and he did not offer.
You had nearly 3 years in the sunshine.
But it's not my fault. I explained to you that's what the process is here, and that's why the libel laws need to be changed.
I want to ask you, did you instruct private investigators, K2?
I did not hire any private investigators such as K2.
Right, so who hired them? It's a remarkable coincidence that private investigators, K2, were digging into Charlotte Leslie's private life.
I'm not able to help you. I did not hire K2, full stop.
You are a very wealthy man. She is not a wealthy woman. Do you sympathise with the toll that this took on her financially, emotionally?
At one level, I do, but I also went through the same trauma. 35 years of my pristine work with my foundation, my work with the poor of this world, with the disenfranchised of this world, was all blown to smithereens.
Well, except the judge said, no, your reputation was not seriously harmed.
That's what he thinks. He did not even cross-examine me. This could have been solved in 3 words. I am sorry, full stop.
Yeah, but you're asking her
Number
to
one.
admit
Number
liability
one.
for
No,
something
I'm not
that
asking
she...
for anything. All I'm saying is 3 words, I am sorry. She acted as if she was completely entitled.
Do you not think that you behaved as an entitled person, as a significant Conservative donor who's given hundreds of thousands of pounds to the party?
There is absolutely no connection between my giving money to the party or this with this organisation.
Your claims against Charlotte Leslie on social media are pretty incendiary. You've talked about how she's captured by foreign states, that she's been meeting sanctioned individuals and even in cases taking money off them. It's not a shred of evidence to support that, is there?
I'm not somebody who makes, as you've seen from this interview, crass remarks.
But it's quite hard for us to take your word for that, given what the judge said about you in court.
Ask her to sue me. Ask her to sue me.
Well,
ask her to sue me.
Then we know what happens with that, don't we?
No.
Her financial resources would soon wear out.
So ask her to sue me. If I'm wrong,
you want
sue
that
me.
because you have deep pockets. You can
It's
fund
not
those
about that.
lawsuits.
It's not about that.
She can't.
It's about her journalist friends and with whom she has mounted a campaign against me. This campaign still continues.
But this isn't a campaign against you. You've got a campaign against her with these claims on social media.
I have the right to ask some questions. When I ask questions about her and her organisation, she becomes a SLAPP victim.
No. You have not asked questions. You've made statements. You've made allegations without a shred of evidence to back it up.
You have to read them carefully because I've said that these are issues that need investigation.
Mohamed Amersi, thanks very much.